Welcome to the best 20 minutes you'll have today. We are Team English Language Arts, and this is our presentation. Starring Maria Pote, Alex Ledford, Tara Wood, Stacy Kennan, Abigail Kennedy, and Desiree Mawson. As you can see in the graphic below, the colloquial term squad goals refers to what you'd like your group of friends to be or accomplish. It is generally used by millennials to reference their goals for debauchery for the evening. Our squad goals, of course, are a bit different, though this team can often be just as debaucherous. Our efforts this year were geared towards enhancing student awareness of the rubrics in their assignments and encouraging them to actually use them to increase learning and improve grades. In order to aim our research in an effective manner, we used the question, why are students using rubrics inconsistently, and how can we assist them in using them properly, as our guide. Serving as squad goals for students and teachers alike, we created learning objectives to guide us. It has been our aim that through the process of our research, students will learn how to use a rubric to evaluate and revise an assignment. I also felt that the research was a prime opportunity for growing and learning of our own, so we explicitly stated that teachers will learn the why behind students' lack of rubric use. Armed with that knowledge, we will be able to adapt our pedagogy and courses in response. With our mission clearly stated, it was time to devise a strategy for execution. We chose for our tools the illustrious Adobe Connect, PowerPoint, and SurveyMonkey programs. We recognized early on an opportunity to craft our research along lines that will, as they say, kill two administrative mandates with one stone. By pooling together our individual deliberate practices, or DPs for short, we could create a quality lesson that simultaneously enhances student learning, bolsters the quality of our courses, and checks some of those annual review boxes. We'll start at the beginning, which a wise woman once said was a very good place to start. The first DP we focused on was number 1. In it, the teacher provides rigorous learning goals and/or targets, both of which are embedded in a performance scale that includes application of knowledge. This was Alex's DP. In order for students to recognize their actual existing level of facility with rubrics, we employed some very straightforward and quote-unquote elementary rubrics. We had some wonderful discussions about chocolate chip cookies, hamburgers, and movie rating. Then, in order to bring the rigor up to an appropriate level, we have the students work with more advanced rubrics from the English courses we teach. This example has students analyzing a sample thesis statement and providing their own scores based on the provided rubric. Our next DP is number 11, helping students elaborate on new content. This was Tara's DP. Students don't always use evidence to support their responses, and their responses don't necessarily show their thinking. This rubric lesson was not the main way that we tried to get students to elaborate, but if they get into the habit of viewing and using rubrics, we think that should help them elaborate in their responses. Here is one example where using a rubric might encourage a student to elaborate. In breakout rooms, students used rubrics to evaluate thesis statements, and they had to discuss why they scored the thesis statements the way that they did, elaborating on the content with specific examples and details. In this close-up, we can see students in one of the breakout rooms elaborating on the scores that they had given in the activity.
My professional development goal focused on revising knowledge. I used my grading feedback and phone calls to help students correct errors and expand their knowledge, but how could I introduce rubrics as another strategy? Information was the key. Participating in the collaboration on rubrics would provide students with more knowledge about rubrics and how they can contribute to a student's success with the lesson. It was easy to see that the students gained more skill at evaluating work with a rubric when presented with sample assignments. Here, the students were able to point out where this thesis hit the mark and where it misses. We also received some great responses to the reflection after the rubric rally collaboration. Here, 2 attendees share their thoughts on how to use rubrics for future assignments.
The next DP we covered was number 12, focusing on how students record and represent knowledge. This was Stacy's DP. The best way to show a multitude of methods for how students record and represent their knowledge was to include new and numerous opportunities for them to practice. This includes collaborative work, whole group discussions, utilizing multiple modalities, and project-based applications. Some of the mainstays in a tri-modal approach are visual methods, including traditional text and PowerPoint visuals, kinesthetic lessons that get students moving, such as science experiments and physical activities, as well as auditory elements such as music and podcasts.
Another tool in our toolbox could be project-based learning, where students really learn to apply information to real-world activities. Students enjoy it, and it serves a practical purpose in stepping outside the proverbial learning box.
My deliberate practice focuses on identifying critical content, which is the main purpose of rubrics in general. Most students miss part of the assignment details, and if they would actually use the rubric more like a checklist, like the example I have at the bottom where it lists out all the different parts that are assessed on the rubric, they would probably do much better on their assessments.
In order to ascertain where our students were at prior to the lesson and how far they came thanks to it, we used SurveyMonkey. We linked the students to a short and sweet survey both before and after the lesson and collated the data afterwards. Our first question focused on the students' comfort level with using the rubrics in their courses. Before the lesson, students were already fairly comfortable with them, scoring a 4.5 out of 5 on the Likert scale that we used. We saw a nominal bump after the lesson, with scores rising to 4.57 out of 5. The second question focused on the students' ability to use rubrics to create new products. Since a number of assignments in most of our courses offer rubrics along with the directions, this is an important but often overlooked tool. We saw a big jump in students' responses, rising from 3.64 to 4.16 out of 5. Our final question focused on the students' skills using rubrics to revise their work. So precious few take the opportunity to redo work, and fewer still employ the grading rubric to figure out where they went wrong the first time. This is where we saw our biggest improvements, with the responses rising from 3.5 to 4.43 out of 5. While anecdotally we have seen some marked improvement in the use of rubrics in our courses, having the numbers to back it up will be a longer process. Thanks to the live lesson we have now offered on several occasions, students claim to better understand what rubrics are and how to use them to create new products and revise existing. Well, that about wraps up the best 20 minutes you'll have today, so we'd like to extend the opportunity for you to ask us any lingering questions or to share your comments. You can save your criticisms for next year. On behalf of the English Language Arts PLC, I'm Ron Burgundy.